Nice to see you all, and welcome to this last video about the series we have regarding the PhD thesis. In this video we're going to look at potential issues that you may encounter during the 3-year PhD studies, and we'll try to make it relatively short and give you some hints on where you could look at in order to improve the situation you have in. Stay tuned. I have seen not only my own PhD project, but several other guys and girls that were doing the project with alongside me, and also many others I have seen in a number of places around the world. Since I graduated as PhD, and I was their supervisor or their co-supervisor. So I have a fairly good idea of the general issues and the trends that are there. Obviously we are not going to cover all the potential issues you may encounter there, but the main one, or at least the ones that people kind of complain about, okay, and give you some a different spin to what is talked about out there, and it's kind of my way to deal with this sort of problems. And when I have people that have these issues, this is what I tend to tell them, okay, to think about, okay, so they can solve it by themselves. So one of the first issue is losing too much time at the beginning of the PhD project. This is it's a reality. Someone gets into a PhD project, is quite excited about it. It's normal. It's not a project you get every day, and this is only one chance you have. So you don't have another chance to do a project like this. So it's extremely exciting. People are in maybe a new place and maybe a new country, as was me. And it's extremely tempting to, discover things out there, and, thinking, wow, this PhD is, 3 years, it's very far down the line. I can afford to spend a few months, okay, at the beginning, and then those few months become, half a year, probably more. By the time you realize you are on the back foot. And when you are on the back foot, the chance to make mistakes and to cut corners, it's much greater. So my suggestion is, you can enjoy yourself to the fullest, like I did, without overdoing it, and keeping a good eye on your PhD project, making sure that it starts to roll on from the very beginning. Okay, you modulate your commitment, the time you invest in it from the beginning, and go stepwise till you feel comfortable and strong enough to take more and more as time progresses. But don't waste too much time at the beginning in doing other things which are not related with your PhD project. That's a massive mistake you can make. Another thing that people complain about is the relationship with your PhD supervisor. It's a relationship, and as a relationship with any person, even with your spouse, with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, it can be difficult at times. It can be, at times can feel uncomfortable because it's a relationship with another person. And as many relationships, a problem with a specific thing, like an experiment, quickly turns out to be a problem between two people. So try to learn, the way your supervisor operates, works. Most of the time he has or she has too many commitment, very limited time, and she or he wants you to be sharp during that half an hour, 1 hour session. every few days or even per week. Sometimes we have professor that wants to see you once a month. You make sure you get there really prepared. Okay, so in that how that you have with him or her, you nail down all the issue you have. Remember, these guys, if they have a lot of commitment, many times they have a lot of experience. Therefore, it takes very little for them to give you some critical advice. So, don't be frustrated. They are seeing you once a month, once every few weeks, once a week. Get there prepared. Okay, maybe not the first 1 or 2 sessions, but then from there onwards you get there prepared to take advice from this well of knowledge. That's what some of the guys and girls out there as your supervisor are. They're a well of knowledge. You have to take water from this well of knowledge and bring it to your home. So try to put aside the way they operate, because this is most likely to do with their personality. Every one of us has a personality. You have a way to operate which may cross that person you got to see, which is your supervisor. But they have most of the time the experience and knowledge to deal with that particular person, which is you. And you should learn the same. You should learn to put aside the personality of the person you are dealing with and go straight to the kernel of that meeting, which is your PhD project, your problems you have in the lab, okay, or in front of a computer, and nail them down. That's what your primary and only objective is when you go to see your supervisor. Your objective is not to like your supervisor. You don't need to like him or her. You don't need to be friends. You are there as adults to get to a common goal, which is the end of your PhD project. If you do become friendly and you become friends with your PhD supervisor, that's a plus. Okay? It's something more. But the primary objective remains. It is only to get your PhD done. Another thing which people kind of complain about, especially towards the end of the PhD project, is the literature review. This is can be a massive, undertaking. But we have already seen in another video, previously, how to tackle this. PhD literature review can be a daunting task, not because of the task itself, but because you are now rushing at the end of the PhD project, where you know extremely well what you have done, but you have forgotten what other people have done that you need to cite in your PhD thesis. And many times you've even forgotten where you read the thing. You may know what you read, but you don't know where you read it. Okay? So I suggest you go back to the another video which I have published previously, where I show you how I did it. I will put a link down in the description to this video, to that particular piece of video I published, and how I tackled this kind of nasty problem of the literature review. It looks daunting, nasty, but it is not. Okay? If you are a bit organized from the very beginning, and even if you are, towards the last few months of your PhD project and you have been a bit organized, then it's still okay to make a little sacrifice and recover the thing that you haven't recorded. However, if you've been a bit messy and you haven't kept any records of what you read when you read it, you arrive at the very end of your PhD project, this can be quite difficult time. So go back and read those, can learn those suggestions that I made in another video and see how I did it. Good. There are also some financial constraints sometimes, financial constraint of yourself, because you have, if you are towards the end of your PhD project and you haven't completely finished, and you need to then embark on a writing task which may last a number of months, you may be bored from this 3 years time limit. And when you do it, if your PhD supervisor doesn't have any other financial means to support you, then you need to support yourself. So, just think of it well in advance, try to save some money, or, maybe towards the end of your PhD, try to, get a part-time job or something like this, which will allow you to keep ongoing with your PhD project and making sure that that remains your primary goal, to get your PhD degree, okay? So you get kind of temporary job, somewhere part-time job that will sustain you financially, but your primary goal should be and must remain to get your PhD degree, okay? You have spent a number of years in doing this. You don't want to waste it, okay, at the last shot, right? Throughout the PhD and also towards the end of it, people complain about issue with experiments. Yeah, there are. I have encountered them too. A number of experiments I wanted to do didn't work. Okay, but I had done, some preliminary work at the beginning of my PhD project, which allowed me to scope out a relatively large number of tests that I wanted to do. And as I was doing tests, I was keeping an eye on what I was seeing and understanding if I could do more. So, when I reached towards the end of my PhD, I realized that, I could have done more than a third more of tests for older data, which means, that, we can complain about the PhD experiment not working, the setup not be perfect, but the reality is that in most cases, in majority of cases, I would say, you have much more on the table that you can actually choose. So you can choose which one, okay, to perform. This has been the same thing during my master thesis, I remember, back in the year 2000-ish, I had some issue with the software I was using, and we couldn't get through it, So I, instead of complaining about it only, I have developed a numerical, algorithm myself. And instead of using the software, which was a conventional software, I had a problem which I could solve it numerically myself by hand. And, I proposed it to my master supervisor. He was extremely happy about this. He said, okay, well, if you can't solve the problem with the software, then, this is an alternative way, which looks pretty nice, that you can include in your master thesis, And this shows you that there is some flexibility also from the side of your supervisor. If you show him or her you have an issue and you have some alternatives to that issue, this is seen much better than going to him or her with the issue, saying, there is an issue, I don't know how to solve it. This maybe at the beginning, it's tolerated, but later on, is seen as poor. You should come up with some alternative suggestion on how to do it. And now let's go to some of the general suggestion I make about all of these problems that you may find during the PhD project. My kind of experience tells me that we have poor time management. Okay, we have already mentioned the time that we tend to squander at the beginning of the project, because 3 years looks long, really long, and time management is one of the major issues in planning a PhD project and executing it. Then resources, we complain we don't have this, we don't have that, but if I look back to my PhD project myself, I have been also having this issue with resources, and I made it up with things that I find in the lab, things that I have borrowed from other people around the university. So I didn't complain about it. I just used what I had. I bought the minimum I could. I spent very little during my PhD project because I borrowed it. People are relatively happy to lend you something that they are not using. Instead of keeping it there, okay, just take it. So you go around to see what other people have and borrow from them. And then it's about energy management. If you spend too much energy complaining and at the beginning of your PhD, doing other things than your PhD project, you get to the end of your PhD project depleted of the most valuable energy you had. So what else can you expect at that point? So keep an eye on time, resources, and especially energy management. Very important. Now, there is a kind of triad that I like to suggest. One is flexibility. Be flexible. Don't be rigid in your approach to things and your approach to people. Be flexible. Learn how to be flexible. When I have a challenge now, faced by a person, I understand immediately that the way to deal with it is relax. Just pull back, relax, and think of what I can get from this relationship with this person, regardless of who this person is. What personality does he or she has? What can I get out of this? That's my first question. And I am extremely flexible mentally on how to approach these people. Then, be a bit opportunistic. You don't have something? What else do you have on the table? What else do you have around in the lab? Is there anything else you can use instead of complaining about that thing you can never get? So be opportunistic. You have only 3 years. You need to succeed within 3 years. So be very opportunistic with what you have. And last thing is, be straight. Go straight as to the point as an arrow. Go straight to the target. Cut through the mist that is out there and go straight to the target. That target, it's called PhD degree. Okay? Be kind with people and ruthless with your time. You will make it.